Hey Quilties, it's Karen Marchetti. It is time for another episode of Dual Process. This time we're working on an orange peel. It is a super fun quilt. Jody and I have two simple designs as well as two complex designs. So can't wait to get started. Okay, I'm going to zoom in on this so we can see a little bit better. Okay, so this is my simple one, and I'm going to assume that this is the first roll of the quilt. Be to there, probably a little past that. We don't actually know what size this quilt is, but this is how I would normally do it. You know, two sets of orange peel rows at one time. So I'm going to start right here. I'm going to stitch down and make a circle, get to the corner, stitch up, and I'm about 2/3 of the way through the orange peel when I do the circle. And I'm just doing this by eye. I doubt I would use a ruler for this. And just do all the way across, and then when I come back, I'm going to put a half circle here, half circle, and those half circles will make more sense in a minute. I'm going to come down here, put a half circle, stitch through it, circle, circle. So I'm going to repeat the same thing on the way back. So that would be the first advance. Depending on how you might be able to get in this next row of circles, on how far, if you advanced it or not. So then you would definitely have to advance, roll the quilt up. So if we left our needle down, we can just start and go in the opposite direction on this row. Again, quilting is so much neater than drawing. I don't draw the best. So now I'm here, and I'll go back up and fill this one. And this actually goes really fast. So again, depending, we may have to smidge it a little depending how big these blocks are, but I'm going to sneak in this row of circles. Leave my needle down, advance the quilt, and then just go into the next one. As long as your bobbin lasts, you don't even have to take your tie off. So again, just filling these spaces with circles. So now we're still coming back up here. More circles, lines and circles. Sneak across to fill in those circles there. Leave your needle down, roll the quilt, and then finish the last two. But like I said, I would have done these freehand. You can totally put a ruler down and get perfect shapes. That's personal preference. Let me zoom it out so you can see the whole thing. And there it is. That would be my simple version of the orange peel.
Hi, this is Jody. In my more simple quilting plan for an orange peel quilt, I decided to go with something that, because I wanted to keep it simple, I really want it to be able to move from one side, the left, to the other in one pass without having to do a lot of stopping and starting. And the design I ended up deciding on is one that can be worked the whole way across one pass, just simply with one start on the left and ending on the right. And for this particular quilt, we're going to assume that we can, we don't know exactly how big this quilt is, but I'm going to assume that I know I can reach like these 2 rows of blocks as one. Depending on your throat size and the size of the quilt, you may be able to do 2 at once, but I'm going to figure that I can reach that first row. So we're going to start over here on the left. And what I'm going to do in the open areas are just straight lines. I probably would use my ruler to do these. What I did decide to do though is, instead of feeling the need to keep them all perfectly spaced, like from here to here to here, so they all, look like they travel behind there, I decided that I would do randomly spaced lines. So then I don't have to worry at all about what happens in here compared to what happens in here. So again, like I said, I would use the ruler. And because I have this little top section up here, I need to do that first before I actually go into the center of the block. So I would go ahead and start there. I'm just going to start in the corner right here. And I'm going to sneak in here and using my ruler. I really just randomly, kind of maybe I think I put some more narrow ones in. And I do always, though, want to make sure that I put one line on that seam, so that it's not popping up when you're done with the quilt and you take it off the frame. You might notice that those seams are all popping forward. So I am going to try to put one line on each of those seams. And I'm just going to travel along the little orange peel right along to the next block. And again, with randomly spaced, some closer, some farther apart. Just work my way back and forth, kind of zigzag across the top here, along the top edge. They're a little hard to draw. If you were using a ruler, they would be straight. Again, I'm making sure I catch that seam. And then at this point, I can actually just come down here and work my way back across. But I'm right here at this intersection. So as I work my way back across, I might as well jump into these petal shapes or orange peel shapes and go ahead and add the design. So what I decided to do in each of these orange peel shapes are swirls, because I really like swirls. They're simple to do. They're very pretty. So what I'm going to do is just jump in here. I'm going to do one swirl, alternate the directions, and a third one. And then I can just trace my way back out. And I'm not worrying that I'm on the same line, because I really want it to have more of a kind of a ribbon effect. And I'll just work my way around here and do each one of these. Back out. So I just want to make sure that I have enough quilting, you know, in, whoops, wrong way, in each of these, that it doesn't look unbalanced in density. And then I'll just make my way out of there and pick right up with these lines, making sure I hit the seam. Just kind of back and forth, come to this next one, go right in with our swirls. And you don't have to alternate the direction. You could just do them all straight if that's what you like. You could also put any number of things in here. You may want to put some leaves instead of swirls, whatever design you like. Sneak out and can pick up with these straight lines. Back to the curls. And you can see, I mean, this really would go quite fast. Back to the lines, making sure I travel along that seam, the seam and the edges of those shapes. And then finish out this row. And I'm going to go ahead and stop right here. I'm going to advance the quilt. And you see, I mean, I could come in and probably do this, but not really, because I can't probably reach the whole thing. So I'm going to go ahead and advance the quilt. And now we're going to work on this section in here. And I'm just going to do the same thing. This time, I'm going to work my way through the center. Now, I may or may not, you know, depending on your throat space. So I need to be able to reach this high because I need to get in here. So I don't know for sure that I would be able to reach all of these. And if, let's say you have a smaller throat space and you may not be able to reach that, that's fine. I would probably go ahead. I mean, I'm already coming down here with this line of stitching. So I probably would go ahead and get these done, as I'm already there. And then just continue with these straight lines over to here. Go ahead and jump in here and do these swirls. Oh. Back out and continue. You'll notice that the swirls will kind of have to graduate in size to fit those little shapes. So you have kind of a smaller one, a bigger one, and then usually a little bit smaller one at the very top there. Pick up with my lines and stop. I'm going to need to advance again, and we can work our way back. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead back through these centers and pick up these last, the other side, I guess it is, of these orange peels. Straight lines. Swirls. And you're just going to continue doing that whole way across. Come out. Straight lines. And finish off that section. And then end my stitching. Go ahead and advance the quilt. So I'm going to advance not even a whole roll because I just want to go ahead and grab the centers now. And because you see, you know, for each of these orange peel shapes, the swirls are oriented that they're coming out from the centers. So I don't, as I do these straight lines this time, I don't want to come in here because they need to come out from the center like the rest of the quilt. So my first pass will just be doing these straight lines to get myself to where I can do the whole block of petal shapes. Through. Straight lines. Okay, and I'm going to end here. I'm going to go ahead and advance the quilt. So now I can grab this whole section. And I mean, I could start over on the right, but I've already advanced the quilt and my thread is not in anyway, so I prefer to work from left to right. Now I do want to show, I'm going to use this second half of the quilt to show you one other option. You may not be a fan of ruler work, or maybe you just don't, you know, you want it to be kind of quick. You don't feel like having to get out a ruler and do all that. You may want to, instead of doing the straight lines and needing to travel along the edge of the shapes, you may want to do these little back and forth lines, and that would work just as well. You'd come in here and we're going to do our swirls as we come to the centers. Back out. And then pick up with these back and forth lines. And again, you would ideally, you want to try to hit that seam with these as well. Center, swirls. All the way back out. Pick up with your little back and forth lines. To the center there. You know, there are a lot of different things that you might decide to do in there. Where I have the straight lines or the back and forth lines, you could really put anything in there. You might decide you just want to do a simple fill in there, maybe a meander or loops or whatever fill that you love to do. You could easily replace it. You would just want something that travels so that you can use it to get from one side of that background area to the other, so that you're able to come into these petals, to add your swirls. forgot my last swirl. And then pick up with my back and forth lines. Tie off. Again, and advance the quilt. And this time we just need to do these straight lines. And in this case, it's the back and forth. This probably would go a lot quicker than the straight lines. And again, we don't need to go into the centers because we need those little spirals, or little curls, I'm sorry, to all be coming out of the center. Then we'll advance the quilt, do this last pass. I'm going to work my way through the center first, back and forth, swirls. Travel. Back out. Now, there is one other option, and before I get to the end of the quilt, I should probably tell you about that. You may decide to do your back and forth lines just this for the whole row, maybe. This might just make more sense to you. And then go back, and you may want to do your spirals that travel through here. And you could certainly do that. You know, you would just travel right into the next one. That's just another option. I don't think we all work the same way. Sometimes a certain path makes more sense to someone than another. And then when you made it all the way back, you would come back the other direction, this way. So you would be coming down out of here, and I would just be continuing. So it would kind of be 3 passes, which I usually would prefer to do everything in one pass if I can, but that doesn't always make the most sense to everybody. And you just travel from one to the other continuously across instead of pausing in the center here and adding your swirls. So then I would just sneak down here and be able to reach this and do my back and forth lines. Goodness, is that sloppy? It's actually much easier to stitch it than to draw it. And then you're at the end. So there you go. I hope you had some got some ideas from that. And there are tons of different things that you might decide you want to add in place of the designs that I chose to use.
Okay, now on the more advanced version, I'm still starting up here. I'm going to come down, back up, fill that with some pebbles. Right here, I'm going to come up and put in a little lollipop, or whatever you want to call it. It's just a straight line with a circle on the end. Now before I leave here, I'm going to put a lollipop here and a lollipop here, and then fill my pebbles in. Down, back around. One here, put one here, and one here. I just go around twice. You don't have to go around twice. Again, that's personal preference. and then back out again. Now on this one, I would most likely use rulers to get those arcs exactly the same. So then I would stitch down here and come back. And put my lollipop down. So that's why I say I would use rulers, so that this and this, they'd be somewhat similar. Just when you're hand drawing it, they come out different sizes. And get here, add a lollipop down. And I must be stuck on circles today because I'm using it in both designs. Again, lollipop down, but that's okay, circles are good. So I'll leave my needle down right there, and we will advance the quilt and repeat the same thing. Lollipop over, lollipop up, lollipop over. Lollipop over, lollipop up, lollipop over. So it's just the same design over and over again. And the good thing is, if you happen to forget one, like say I just forgot, let's take that out. Whoops, didn't mean to take that much out. Anyway, so I'm going to forget one of these so I can show you that you'll be able to catch it again later. So we're going to leave this one out. Okay, just say I forgot to put that one there. It's not a big deal because our needle is going to hit this spot again, and we'll be able to throw it in on the way back. So lollipop over, lollipop up, lollipop over. Stitch down your seam line, or off of your quilt, actually, not a seam line. And repeat it back. Lollipop down. So now I'm right here. I can throw that one in that we missed. What just happened? I missed this one because I'm talking. So we'll stick that in before we leave. There we go. That happens all the time. If I'm talking and quilting, I miss stuff a lot. So it's probably better that I don't talk and quilt. Same thing happens if I listen to like an audiobook. I have to listen to music when I quilt. It keeps me more focused. So now we're here. I'm going to leave that needle down. Advance the quilt. Repeat the whole process. So the worst part of this is making sure that you don't forget anything, like I just did. Again, see, worst part of it. I bet you when we zoom out, I will have forgotten something else. So just have to pay attention. Or you can mark tick marks, put some chalk marks so you don't forget any of your stuff. That works too. Cut down on the outside of the quilt. So we're going to make sure to get that one that we forgot. Fill that all in. Again, leave that needle down. There's the last advance on the quilt. Fill in your little circles. Try not to forget your lollipops. And just finish filling it in. I really like how this one looks. Stitch down off your quilt. Come back on the last row. Almost done. And then the last block. Okay, now I'll zoom out and we'll see if we missed anything. Nope, looks good to me. So like I said, I really like how this one looks. I'm stuck on the circles and the lollipops. So anyway, that was the complex version. I hope you enjoyed it. So this is what's good about when you do a design and you sit and look at it, because here is my design, and what I realized after I sat and looked at it is I have a lot of open space in here. So what I did is I went back in and ditched it. So I wanted to show you, you can still do it pretty continuous. When you're at this point right here, Just go around and ditch it and then continue on. It just adds another step. So I thought I would share that because it looks much better with the orange peel stitched than wide open. And if that's the other thing too, if I were really quilting this, I would have noticed that there was way too much space that's not quilted.
For my more difficult quilting plan, I decided to keep kind of with the same basic idea as I did with the simpler design idea. So I'm going to do a design, and I decided to add, I'm going to put flowers in these sections. And I'm going to make, because I'm putting flowers in there, I'm going to make these kind of be leaves. But I mean, again, I really want it to be continuous, be able to work from one side to the other without stopping and starting. And the reason that I chose the flowers was because they're going to run, the petals are going to be like this. So ideally, I'm trying to stay as close to the edge of these shapes as possible so that I can basically stitch it in the ditch as I do the design and kind of kill two birds with one stone. And my flowers do have little circles in it. And when I was actually quilting this, I would go ahead probably and mark these little centers so I knew where they were going to be. As I draw it, I'm not going to mark it ahead of time, but I would on a real quilt. So again, we're going to assume we can reach these first two together. And because I need to do these top ones separately, I'm going to do that first. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go over, I'm going to stitch the little flower center, and then I'm going to start with the petals. And what I'm envisioning is I am aiming for the center on each one of these, so I know where the petals are going to go. So I'm going to go, when I travel along the shape, as I come to the center, I'm just going to kind of go in and back out. Again, kind of aiming for the center, and we have our little flower. Then I can just travel right into the next one, flower center, back out, in and out, and I have my petals. So this kind of, I mean, it's going to actually go pretty fast. You're going to want to go, kind of slow to make sure that you're hitting right along the edge of that orange peel shape. Oop, I forgot my center. In and out, and done. Now you could work your way. You could travel right down here and go back through. I myself know that I can't stitch these that direction. So I am going to tie off, and I'm going to come over here and start. I just know for me, it's much easier for me to work left to right doing these. And again, I'm just going to work my way through. Whoops, I'm going to stitch half the flower center. Go ahead and do my petals, in and out. But this time, because I want to do the whole pass across, and because I'm doing the entire flower, let me start that again. I'm going to do the top first. So I would put my little half center in, do this petal, in and out. Then I'm going to go right in to the next one. Over to here. I'm going to aim for that center. I'm going to go in, make the center, out, petal, into the next one, center, in, circle, out, in and out, and travel right into the next one. So I think after about one pass, it kind of becomes a little more flowy. Here we only need half a circle. And then we're going to come back, and we're going to do the same thing on the bottom, making sure that we stay really close to that shape, so it's kind of stitching it in the ditch. Now, as we go back, we're going to pause at each one of these, where the four petals come together, and add our leaf shape. You could do any number of things to make this look like a leaf. You may want to go out and kind of do this in there. You could put, you know, a smaller leaf. I decided to just kind of echo once, twice, and then add a spine. So I'm going to go once, twice, spine, 1, 2, center spine, 1, 2, center spine. And I'm kind of using, I would use my hopping foot to kind of try to aim maybe for like 1/4 of an inch around the outside right here. I mean, they're not going to all be the same, and I'm okay with that. You know, in the overall scheme of it, they're going to look fine. And then I'll sneak right back out and pick up with the bottom of the flowers. And then you see right here, we go right into the next one. In, out. Oh, and I totally missed the leaves. But that's okay. I'm just going to travel backwards and do them. Happens all the time. So our echo, whoa, that one's pretty bad. Let's try that again. 1, 2, center spine, 1, 2, spine. And then I'll travel through here yet again. Aiming for the center, right into the next one. Almost forgot the leaves again. And then pick up with this flower. Echo, echo, center spine. And that one's done. Now I'm going to go ahead and advance the quilt so that I can reach to do these flowers. I'll start over here. And this time I don't need to worry about the leaves because I want to go do the leaves out from the centers here. So I'll get those, I'll advance the quilt a little bit farther to get those. So I'm just going to this time be doing the flowers. So we're going to go in, center, make the circle, and you know, you may, again, we don't really know what the scale of this quilt is. If these were a pretty large area, you may want your flowers to be have a little more quilting in them than that. Then you could certainly do that. You may decide you want to add like some little spines in here maybe as you stitch them, and you could do that. You might also want to do something more in the centers, but that's totally up to you. And out. So I'm going to roll the quilt a little bit more so that I can now reach all of this, so I can get those center flowers and the leaves. So it's almost like you're going to do one full pass and then kind of have a roll. So this time, I mean, you also have the option. I mean, I'm doing one thing as I go across the flowers and the leaves as I come back. You certainly could do them all at once if you want. Half flower. Maybe at this point, you want to go ahead and do your leaves as you go. I think it's really important to try to find the path that works the best for you. I think we all just kind of think a little bit differently about what path makes sense. leaves. Pick back up, down, center. So the flower is really just kind of an in and out motion as you travel along that seam. Half a center there. And then we'll catch the bottom side of the flowers. Oh, forgot that one. And now we're gonna tie off. We're gonna do, again, kind of that half of an advance because we need to be able to, this time, to just do these flowers in here. So I'm gonna start here, in, do my flower. And then work my way back across the bottom of each flower. Okay, now we're going to advance the quilt again, and now we're going to work on this section. So this time we can do the entire pass of the flowers and the leaves, and I'll do it again as I go. So I just need half here. Stop and do these leaves. More flowers. You could also change your petal shape if you wanted. And maybe do a flower that had more petals. You could certainly do that. In, get this final half a flower, and then work our way back. And then we're going to advance the quilt, and then we are kind of doing another one of these half rolls, and so we can get these flowers. Start here, my way across. And then finish up the bottom. And then our last and final pass at the bottom here. And we'll start here. Of course, we have a half flower. Do our leaves. In, circle, in and back out, leave, back into the flower. So the next thing, back to the flowers, Oh, almost did the whole thing. Forgot I was scooting across here. Now we're going to go down, grab the bottom half. And luckily, I remembered, look, I just missed these leaves. So we're going to go ahead and go right here. Okay, we have these last set of leaves. Finish the bottom of the flower. Now we're going to work our way across this final part. And these are half flowers. Over, center. And we're done. So I hope you enjoyed that design. And again, I encourage you to give it a try and maybe even try changing up the flowers or the style of leaves that you might want to use. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope that you have enjoyed today's designs, and be sure to join us for the next episode of Dual Process.